I always knew my family saw me as a walking bank account. But I never expected them to plot behind my back, to bleed me dry and toss me aside. And how did I find out? A drunk mistake. My aunt accidentally sent me a video meant for the family group chat where they literally laughed about cutting me off the second I was no longer useful. Oh, but I got the last laugh. Because when they came crawling back, I made sure they regretted every single word. My whole life I was the responsible one, the golden child turned family piggy bank. While my cousins partied and my brother quit every job he got within a week, I was the one who busted my ass through college, worked 12-hour shifts, and built my own business from scratch. And what did my family do? They guilt-tripped me for forgetting where I came from. It started small. Can you cover dinner? Then rent. Then suddenly I was paying for my uncle's gambling debt and my cousin's failed boutique business. And like an idiot, I kept giving because they were family until the video. One night, my Aunt Linda accidentally sent me a video message meant for my cousins. At first I thought it was just another dumb family clip. But then I saw my mother, my uncle, my cousins, all sitting around drinking, laughing, and then my stomach dropped. She thinks we actually like her. She's literally our free credit card, my cousin Melissa slurred, raising her glass in a mock toast. And when she stops paying, we just ghost her. She's too uptight to party with us anyway, added my cousin Jake, always ready with a cruel remark. Then my mother, my own mother, leaned forward with that calculating smile I'd seen so many times before but never truly understood. Let her enjoy her little generous phase. When she's drained, we move on. Move on. Like I was some disposable ATM. And to make it worse, they were planning to fake a family emergency to squeeze even more money out of me. I'm thinking medical emergency, Uncle Rob said, rubbing his hands together. Something that insurance won't cover. She's always been a sucker for a sad story. I felt sick. The room seemed to spin around me as I watched these people, these strangers who shared my blood, plot against me with such casual cruelty. The worst part was how they laughed, as if my generosity was some hilarious joke rather than genuine care. But two can play this game. Instead of confronting them immediately, I played dumb. I pretended nothing happened and kept saying, "Oh, I just need time to organize my finances." I needed time to process what I'd seen, to let the shock and hurt transform into something more useful, something like clarity. And in that clarity, I made a decision. Not another penny would flow from my accounts to theirs. Meanwhile, I cut off every single dime. No more rent, no more emergency bailouts, no more Venmo payments for family love. And oh boy, the meltdown began immediately. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree within days. The first call came from my mother, her voice saccharine sweet with practiced concern. "Sweetie, I need to borrow $500 for the electric bill. They're threatening to shut it off by Friday." I took a deep breath, feeling strangely calm as I prepared to drop my bomb. "Oh, I thought you were moving on? You know, like in the video?" Silence stretched across the line, heavy and damning. Then came the stuttering excuses. "What video? I don't know what you're talking about. Are you feeling all right?" The gaslighting might have worked a month ago, but not anymore. The one where you all sat around laughing about using me as your personal ATM. The one where you planned to fake an emergency to squeeze more money out of me. That video, Mom. More silence. Then the soft click of the call ending. I sat in my quiet apartment, surprised by the lack of tears. All I felt was a strange, liberating emptiness where the weight of obligation had once been. The calls came in waves after that. First anger, how dare I accuse them of such things? Then bargaining. It was just a joke. Couldn't I take a joke? Then the fake emergencies began, right on schedule. As if they hadn't realized I'd seen their entire playbook. "Jake's in the hospital," texted Aunt Linda 3 days later. No details, just the vague emergency designed to trigger my concern. I didn't respond. "It's serious," came the follow-up message an hour later. Still nothing from me. By evening, the truth emerged when my cousin Tara, the only one who'd never asked me for a cent, called to check if I'd heard about Jake's terrible hangover that had him totally out of commission. Some hospital emergency. The pattern repeated with increasing desperation. My brother claimed his car was repossessed. It wasn't. My cousin Melissa suddenly needed money for her child's medicine. She doesn't have children. Uncle Rob had a gambling problem intervention that required funding. At least that part was true. Through it all, I maintained radio silence or responded with variations of, "Sorry to hear that. Hope things work out." I could have left it there, could have simply cut the financial cord and moved on with my life, but the memory of their laughter, of my mother's calculating smile, wouldn't let me rest. They needed to understand exactly what they had lost. The best part? I took that entire video and forwarded it to our extended family chat. I even added, "Since I'm just an ATM, this machine is officially out of service." Immediate chaos. The family group chat exploded. My grandmother, who had raised us all on stories of family loyalty, was the first to respond with a single devastating, "I am ashamed." My great-aunt Martha, keeper of family history and dispenser of holiday checks, typed a longer message about betrayal and consequences. Cousins twice removed and distant uncles who appeared only at funerals and weddings all weighed in, united in their shock and disappointment. The judgment was swift and universal. What they had done was unforgivable. Aunt Linda, kicked out of her apartment when my grandmother refused to co-sign her new lease. Apparently, the "We're family" card works both ways. Cousins? Cut off by the rest of the family, no more invitations to holiday gatherings, no more connections to job opportunities through the family network, no more belonged. No questions asked. Mom cried about misunderstandings until she realized I was dead serious. She showed up at my apartment unannounced, eyes red and puffy, clutching a photo album of my childhood. "We were just joking," she insisted, flipping to pictures of her holding me as a baby. "Family teases each other. You're taking it all wrong." I let her talk herself out while I packed a box with the few mementos I wanted to keep: my grandfather's watch, a quilt my grandmother had made, a few photographs from before money became the family language. "I'm not taking it wrong," I finally said. "I'm just finally taking it seriously." I handed her back the album. "The rest of this you can keep. Consider it the last gift you'll get from me." Her face crumpled, not in genuine remorse, but in the realization that her meal ticket had finally wisened up. "You can't just throw away family," she said. A last desperate attempt. "I'm not," I replied. "You all did that the moment you decided I was more valuable as a checkbook than as a daughter, sister, niece, or cousin." I closed the door on her protests, leaning against it until her footsteps retreated down the hallway. The aftermath was both better and worse than I expected. Better because the weight of financial obligation lifted, leaving room in my life for things I'd postponed. Travel, home renovation, even dating without wondering if every potential partner saw me as my family did, a resource to be drained. Worse because the void where family should be gaped wider during holidays and milestones, a persistent ache that time has softened but never completely erased. Now? They still call me, begging for help. The holidays are the worst. Christmas Eve brought 3 voicemails and 7 texts last year, each more desperate than the last. My brother lost another job, Mom's roof is leaking, Uncle Rob can't afford his medication, though he somehow manages to fund his weekly poker game. But I'm too busy enjoying my life, spending my money on the only person who ever earned it, me. That doesn't mean I'm alone. I built a different kind of family now, a chosen one. Friends who celebrate my successes without calculating what they can gain from them. A partner who insists on splitting bills and surprises me with thoughtful gifts that cost more in consideration than dollars. Even Cousin Tara, who reached out months after the video incident with a simple coffee invitation and no requests, has become someone I cautiously welcome in my life. The healing wasn't immediate or complete. Some nights I still wake from dreams where I'm frantically trying to fill a bottomless well with cash while familiar faces watch from the edge, laughing. In darker moments I question whether I was too harsh, too absolute in my severance. But then I remember the casual cruelty in their voices, the entitled expectation that my resources existed solely for their benefit, and my resolve strengthens again. 6 months after cutting ties, I received a letter from my mother. Not an email or text. An actual handwritten letter on stationery I recognized from her desk. The one she used for important correspondence. "I miss my daughter," she wrote, the ink blotchy in places as if tears had fallen. Not her money, not her help, just her. For a moment my heart softened. Perhaps this was the genuine remorse I'd been waiting for. Then I turned the page. "Your uncle is having surgery next month. The copay is substantial. If you could find it in your heart to help, I know he would be eternally grateful. We all would." Same script, different delivery method. I didn't respond. 3 weeks later, Aunt Linda posted on social media about Uncle Rob's successful routine procedure, with a photo of him looking hale and hearty at his favorite restaurant. The emergency surgery, it seemed, had been as fabricated as their affection. The lies were endless, limited only by their imagination and my former gullibility. There was the time my cousin Jake claimed he needed money for a job interview suit, only to post photos in his new investment clothes at a nightclub that same evening. Or when my mother insisted she needed dental work, then showed up with a suspiciously refreshed face that had nothing to do with her teeth. Or when my brother's car repairs mysteriously transformed into concert tickets with his latest girlfriend. Each discovery reinforced my decision, turning regret into resolve. I started a journal documenting each attempt at manipulation, not to nurture resentment, but to remind myself of the pattern when sentimentality threatened my boundaries. The entries became less frequent as months passed, their desperation increasing proportionally to their decreasing contact. "Need $2,000 for eviction notice. Please help or I'm homeless," texted my brother on a Tuesday. I didn't respond, but I did call his landlord, an old family friend, to check. No eviction notice had been filed. The rent was paid, albeit late, just days before. "Medical emergency, call immediately," my mother wrote on my birthday, a calculated attempt to leverage emotion. When I didn't call, she left a voicemail describing vague women's problems that sounded serious, until I recognized the symptoms from a pharmaceutical commercial running that month. With each attempt, their creativity diminished and their transparency increased. They weren't even trying to craft convincing lies anymore, just throwing out emergencies like fishing lines, hoping one would hook my sympathy. A year into my financial freedom, I received an unexpected email from Uncle Rob. Of all my family members, he had been the least persistent in seeking reconnection, perhaps the most embarrassed by the video's revelations, or simply the most realistic about the bridges burned. "I'm sorry," he wrote simply. "Not because I need anything. I don't. I got help for the gambling, real help this time. I'm sorry because you deserved better than what we were, what I was." He didn't ask for forgiveness or relationship restoration, just stated his truth and ended with, "You were always the best of us. I hope you still are." I sat with that email for days, unsure how to respond or if I should. Was this another angle, a long con designed to reestablish contact, or genuine remorse from someone who had found his own rock bottom? In the end, I sent a equally simple reply: "Thank you for the apology." Nothing more, nothing less. No invitation to reconnect, no promise of financial restoration, just acknowledgement. He never responded, which strangely lent credibility to his apology. If it had been manipulation, surely he would have pressed the advantage. 2 years passed. My business expanded. I bought a house, a real one with a yard and space for a garden, not the cramped apartment that had housed my family members' emergencies so often. I adopted a dog from the local shelter, a scruffy mutt with trust issues who gradually learned that not all humans withhold affection or care conditionally. We healed together, this abandoned animal and I, finding in each other the unconditional love that family should have provided, but didn't. On rare occasions, I caught glimpses of my family's lives through social media or mutual acquaintances. Mom moved to a smaller apartment closer to my brother, who finally held a job for longer than a month, necessity being the mother of responsibility. My cousins posted less about parties and more about work frustrations. Aunt Linda started selling hand-knitted items at local craft fairs. A modest income, but honest work. They were surviving without me, without my money. The knowledge brought unexpected relief. I hadn't ruined them by closing my wallet. I'd simply forced them to stand on their own feet, something they'd been capable of all along, but had chosen to avoid while I enabled their dependence. The third Christmas after the video incident, I received a small package in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was Cousin Tara's. Inside was a simple ornament, handmade from clay, painted with childlike enthusiasm. A note explained that her 6-year-old son had made it specially for Mom's cousin who sends the cool books. I'd been sending children's books to Tara's son every few months, not out of obligation but genuine affection for this child I'd never met, born to the one family member who had never treated me like a resource. The ornament now hangs on my tree each year, a reminder that bloodlines and behavior don't always align, that family can sometimes surprise you in positive ways too. That same Christmas, I donated to a financial literacy program at the community center in my old neighborhood, not out of spite or show, but because I understood now how money could twist relationships, how financial dependence could corrupt love, how important it was to build self-sufficiency alongside compassion. The program helps young adults learn to budget, save, invest, and most importantly, establish healthy boundaries around their resources. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Aunt Linda had never sent that video. How much longer would I have remained the family ATM? Another year? 5? My entire life? Would I have worked myself to exhaustion funding their lifestyle while postponing my own dreams? Would I have entered relationships already primed to be taken advantage of, unable to recognize the difference between generosity and exploitation? That accidental video, painful as it was, gave me the most valuable gift possible: truth, harsh, unfiltered truth about where I stood with the people who should have loved me most. And from that truth came freedom, not just financial but emotional. Freedom from obligation without appreciation, freedom from love with strings attached, freedom to build a life centered on authentic connection rather than transaction, and rather one of sensuality. Last month, I ran into my mother at the grocery store. An unexpected collision in the produce section. She's aged noticeably, the lines around her mouth deeper, her hair more gray than brown now. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the background noise of shopping fading as 3 years of silence hung between us. "You look well," she finally said, eyes cataloging my appearance. The good coat, the new haircut, the calm confidence that financial security brings. "Thank you," I replied. "You too." A polite lie. She shifted her nearly empty basket from one arm to the other. "I think about you. Often." I nodded, unsure what to offer in return. The truth? I thought about her less and less as time passed, the sharp pain of betrayal dulling to occasional melancholy for what might have been. "I understand now," she continued when I didn't speak, "why you did it, what we did wrong." A pause. "Your cousin Jake got taken advantage of by some friends. They used him until his money ran out, then disappeared. He was devastated." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "It's different when you're on the receiving end," I observed, no judgment in my tone, just acknowledgement. She nodded, eyes dropping to the floor. "I miss you," she said simply. "Not your money," I finished for her. "I know. You said that in your letter." Her face flushed at the reminder of how quickly that sentiment had been followed by a financial request. "I was still learning then," she said quietly. The conversation might have ended there, polite, strained, ultimately unresolved. But as she turned to go, I found myself asking, "Would you like to get coffee sometime?" The words surprised me as much as her. Her eyes widened. "I'd like that," she said cautiously, as if afraid I might rescind the offer. "Just talking, nothing else." "Just talking," I agreed. We set a date for the following week. Neutral territory, a coffee shop downtown, clear start and end times. No obligations, no expectations. Just an hour to see if anything remained between us worth salvaging. I don't know if reconciliation is possible or even desirable with most of my family. Some betrayals cut too deep, some patterns are too ingrained to change. But I'm no longer operating from hurt and anger, just clear-eyed assessment of what's healthy for me and what isn't. The family bank is permanently closed. That boundary remains non-negotiable. But perhaps With time and proven change, some form of relationship might be rebuilt, not based on what I can give them, but on who we might become to each other now that money is removed from the equation. Until then, I'm more than content with the life I built from the ashes of their betrayal, a life of authentic connections, thoughtful generosity where it's appreciated, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing my worth isn't measured in dollars dispensed, but in the strength it took to say no more. Because the most valuable currency isn't found in a bank account, it's self-respect, and that's something no one can withdraw but me.